to welcome all of you to our monthly Q&A. Our main goal during these Q&As is to come and answer your questions to help you deepen your understanding of the myofascial self-care. But before I do that, I always like to just review our 4 key principles to myofascial self-care, since it is different than traditional care. These are going to be in your chat, so you can see them as I'm going along. But our 4 key principles are: number 1, we never force. Myofascial release never follows the policy of no pain, no gain. And so usually and typically less is more with myofascial self-care and myofascial release. The second key principle is our time element. With most traditional stretching, we're going to hold things for 10 to 30 seconds. But with myofascial release, and really in order to get long-lasting change in the body, we are going to be doing our techniques for a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes. So this is a big difference from traditional self-care. And number 3 is, a lot of times we add something in that's called active elongation or telescoping. And number 4 is we really do feel that being fully present when you're doing your self-care and being aware is critical in order for someone to really start to gain and get the results that they're looking for. Now, over the years, I've added in some additional steps that help people to get really great results. So I have added those into the chat for you that you can go ahead and read through. But as we go along, if you have any questions on any of these key principles or steps, go ahead and add them into the chat, and I would be happy to answer them as we go along. But when I go into the live Q&As, I always go in with an intention. So today's intention is all about, I've got the pain, I feel my pain, but where do I start with treating this? So in order to help me out and make this be more kind of geared towards you guys, if you want to, go ahead and type in that chat area, maybe some of those typical areas that you have pain, whether it be back pain or neck pain, knee pain, whatever it may be. Go ahead and type that in there, and I'll gear kind of some of the things that I'm saying off of that topic. So last month, if you weren't here, we did talk about, and I taught how to do a body scan, which is going to come into play in as we're talking today. But what I also shared with people is 9 times out of 10, where our symptoms are isn't usually where the cause is coming from. So if we remember, our fascial system is this 3D intricate web of tissue that basically interpenetrates and interconnects everything throughout the body. And this fascial web is one continuous system. It doesn't stop. And so when we develop a restriction within that fascial system, that may be from a past trauma, an injury, a surgery, maybe we were going through some high stress or repetitive strain. All of this can start to adhere and create restrictions within that fascial system. And what happens is that area will start to tighten down over time, and then it will start to pull along that fascial web to other areas. So what that kind of is like, if you see me kind of starting to tighten down on my shirt, you can see all of these kind of areas that are pulling. That's what's happening internally within that web of tissue. So this area that started to tighten down, it kind of feels better. It takes the pressure off of that. But then where that pull is going to, the tissue is starting to pull maybe on bony structures and starting to create some inflammation. And that's where we develop what we call our pain, what we have as our symptoms. And so you can feel that on yourself. If you take your shirt, maybe down by, you can't quite see it on me, but down by your diaphragm, and you start to twist and tighten that shirt, can you imagine over time how those lines of pull are going to impact other areas? But can you imagine also that how that's going to start to pull us and draw us down and forward? So many of us have these frontal restrictions that are potentially causing us to feel more compressed over time, especially as we age. or we're starting to feel like we're going into more slouch postures. So what will happen with these lines of tension and these things that are starting to tighten down, as our body is pulling down and going forward, our body is beautiful at self-correcting. So what's going to happen is it can't keep going forward. So all those muscles on the backside are going to start to contract more and more and more to try to pull us back upright. And then what's going to happen is that head is going to start to come forward. And so many of us have that forward head position. And as that head goes forward, our head is meant to be right over our spine. But in a majority of our heads, on average, weigh about 11 to 12 pounds. As that weight goes forward, all of these muscles in the upper back are going to have to start to tighten down even more to try to stabilize and hold and pull that head up. And so that's why many of us over the years have developed a lot of upper back tension. It's from these fascial pulls that are happening over time that are definitely changing our posture and changing our alignment. And so what we do as a society is we tend to rub the area. You know, my upper back hurts, and so I just tend to rub this area, or I tend to stretch this area. But many of us that have done that have noticed maybe it just tightens back down. We're getting short-term relief. So what is happening is we're never truly addressing what is causing it. And so as we start to move about and start to do our day-to-day activities, you know, this resolved for a short period of time, but all of this is still there. And so as we start to get about and start to move around, that's going to just tighten back down. And all of those structures are going to tighten back down. We're going to get our upper back tension again, because we never truly started to address what's pulling us out of alignment and those other areas that could be impacting. Now, someone had put in the chat is, will it show up as tingling? It absolutely could. So our body presents with signals in many different ways. So it could be sharp pain, it could be achiness, it could be throbbing, it could be numbness, it could be tingling, it could be burning, it could be a wide range of sensations. And all of this typically has some form of fascial component that is impacting that. Now with tingling, typically what's going to be happening is somewhere along that nerve path, you're going to have that fascial adhesion that is potentially compressing on that nerve. And it doesn't take much for then that nerve to become irritated and create symptoms. Or we could be having compression from our body being pulled down, and it's creating less space where those nerves come out of the spine. And now we're having stenosis or compression or irritation on those nerves. So what's going to happen is, again, we're going to have those symptoms. And it could present as tingling, it could present as other sensations. Now, another question that came up is, when your body compresses and tightens, can we reverse this? Absolutely, we can do a lot to make a change. Now, when I say that, if let's say I'm a 90-year-old and I have started to have arthritic changes that have really stenosed and started to fuse the bones together, we're only going to make so much change. We can still open up and create a lot of change in the body, but when we've had bony fusion and things starting to happen, we can't reverse that aspect. But for majority of us, absolutely, we can now. Myofascial restrictions are very compressive in nature. They tend to pull us down. And so many times when we start to do opening and start to relieve that pressure that is happening, our body is now going to start to be able to come up into a better posture. We're going to be able to elongate, create more space in the body. So absolutely, there is a lot that most of us can change and make a difference on. So the topic for today is, where do we start? So again, let's talk about, I have my pain in my upper back. What do I do about it? Where do I start? So number one thing that I always encourage people to do is start with a body scan. Now, again, last month, we taught our participants how to do a body scan. What this does is this really helps us start to become aware of not only where our symptoms are, but also maybe other areas that could be impacting these symptoms. It could be we're starting to feel where the dysfunction, or where our body's being pulled out of alignment, where we're being compressed, where we're being twisted or shifted off to a side. So all of these things are things that we're starting to pick up in a body scan. And to be honest, when you start doing a body scan, majority of us have no idea what we're feeling and have no idea what to do about it. And that's okay. What I encourage people to do is start to just do that body scan and start to get some insight of what you are feeling that is different left to right. You don't have to initially be able to put words to it. What my role is for a lot of my clients is we do body scans before every single session. And then they tell me what they're feeling. I also scan their body. And then I start to be able to put words to what these individuals are feeling in their body. And then we start to go into treatment or learning how to self-care. Now, for those of you that weren't able to attend last time, what I did do, and I'm going to put this in the chat, is I did upload the video into our private Facebook group. And so we can go ahead, and if you're interested and not a member of our Facebook group, you can click on the link and join our Facebook group, and you will be able to gain access to that body scan. And I take you through step by step on how to do it. So first step, we do body scans. And I encourage, again, for individuals to do this in the morning. It gives us a baseline of what our body is telling us that day. But then also I encourage people to do it before any self-care routine, because our body is always evolving. It's always changing. And so every day is a different day within what we feel in the body, as well as we go about our day, our body can feel different. And so before you do any type of stretching or self-care, do a quick body scan. Just get a sense of what am I noticing and what am I feeling? And then from there, the second thing that I encourage people to do, now again, most of us are going to want to treat symptomatically. We go right to that area. But what I'm going to encourage people to do, again, that's not getting us results. That's getting us short-term change. So what I encourage for people to do, and a great starting place, is treat the opposite, or treat above or below the area. So what does it mean to do the opposite? So let's say I have upper back tension. So this is in the back of my body. I want to treat the front of the body. The front of the neck and the front of the upper back is the chest. So I may do some form of chest opener. I may also, an opposite may be, if my symptoms are always on this side, I can guarantee you're going to have some restriction over on this side too. So start with maybe treating this side. Or if we're doing maybe treating above or below the area, let's say my neck is bothering me. I can also guarantee that majority of us, because we are a very flexion society where we do a lot of things bending over, we walk, those are all flexion activities. We sit a great deal of the day. So we tend to be very tight in the front, especially down in through our hip flexors. So if we're having a lot of upper back neck problems, treat down in the tummy. We can do direct work in there, maybe some hip flexor stretching, or we can do some ball work in through that area. Or if my low back is bothering me, majority of people have tightness in through the front of their thighs. So that is also treating an opposite, but it's also treating above or below that area. And then when we are done with a technique that we've tried, then I encourage you, rescan. Redo that scan that you did at the beginning and just make note of what has changed. And again, you don't need to put words to it, but get a sense and a feel of what has changed. And as you do this, this is how you start to really notice, when I'm feeling this, I tried this and it made this difference in my body. So that's how you start to notice how what techniques start to make what changes in your own body. And then lastly, if you need to, you can go and treat that symptomatic area. Now it'll probably have less line of tension to it. So it will feel not potentially as sore. It will feel not as tight. And so you will probably gain more mobility and get more movement through that area. I want to share a story with you from a client from many, many years ago. And this story I share with people all the time, and it makes me laugh. I had a guy coming in, and he was coming in for hip pain, glute pain. And let's say it was on the right side. I don't remember exactly which side, but every time he would come in, I would ask him, so what are you doing for self-care? And he says, I'm using the ball and I'm stretching my right hip. And so we'd have this same conversation that I'm having with you guys. I'd say, well, let's go ahead and try treating the left side next time. And he'd come in the next time, and I'd say, what are you doing? He says, I'm treating my right side. And he said this for months. And then all of a sudden one day he came in, he goes, I treated my left side. My God, did that make a difference? I feel so much better. And it took him 6 months to do this, to actually try doing the opposite, because as a society, as I said before, we are so inclined to just treat a symptom. But I encourage the next time that you feel those symptoms, think about what is the opposite? What is above or below the area? And all I'm going to say is, what's the worst that will happen? So you just did a little self-care. Best thing that can happen is it can make a world of difference. Worst thing, maybe it wasn't the right area to treat. You didn't hurt yourself. You just kind of took yourself through some range of motion. So I encourage to definitely treat the opposite. So always with our live Q&As, I encourage people to go home with some action steps. And so I'm going to go ahead and put those action steps into the chat for all of you. So give me a moment. Now, at this time, go ahead, and if you have any questions on anything that I went over, I would love for you to ask any additional questions that have come up. But action steps going forward are, if you're not already on the Facebook group, head on over there, join, and you can get access to that body scan that we went through. And I encourage you, do this daily. Do it in the morning. Get an understanding of what your baseline is and start to notice any type of patterns that you are noticing with your own body each and every day. And then when you do your self-care, do a body scan before, but then try the opposite. Do something different than you ever have before. And maybe if your symptoms are in the back, treat the front, or if your symptoms are on the right, treat the left side. So do the opposite of what you think and just give it a try. And then rescan afterwards so that you can start to notice any differences that have occurred. And most importantly, many of these things are new for many of us. And so I always encourage people, be easy on yourself. Over time and with practice, you start to become much more aware. So if you don't feel something, or you're don't know what the heck you're doing, it's okay. Just be easy on yourself. All we're doing is we're just learning. We're giving it a try, and there's no harm in trying something new. And then if you ever have questions, you can always definitely reach out, and we can help you try to get some greater understanding.